everyone. I just wanted to come on and film my first story time. So this is going to be the story of when I lived with a murderer in Australia it was. So going back now, me and my best friend Chloe, we went to Australia. It was about 3.5 years ago now. We moved there, we were just travelling and we lived there for a year in Australia. And to stay for the second year in the country, you have to do 60 days of farm. Is it 60 days? I think it's 60 days of farm work to get your second year visa granted. So me and Chloe wanted to stay. We loved it at the time of our life, the first year. We made loads of mates. So we wanted to stay for the second year. So we applied everywhere to do farm work. It wasn't just as easy as you think just to get farm work. You've got to really look for it. So we were looking everywhere, all on the internet, applying. This one farm said we could go there. We was living in Sydney most of the time. And this one farm that we got accepted into, we had to get a flight to Melbourne. And then we had to get a 10-hour coach to Mildura, it was called. It was the middle of nowhere. It was like a proper American horror story, middle of nowhere vibe. Not surprised. I lived with a murderer there. And we got there. We had to go on this coach for 10 hours in the middle of the night. It was freezing on the coach. I remember we were lying on the floor by the heaters. We were that cold. We should have knew from then it was a bad vibe. And then we got there. And what we'd do is there was a big hostel. It's loads of like backpackers, people travelling. Basically everyone like quite young was staying there to do the farm work to get the second year visas. So what has happened with us is we'd stay in this big hostel in Mildura, and then we'd get picked up on a Monday and we'd get took down to work planting trees. So Mildura was the middle of nowhere. Then we get picked up of a Monday, drive for 2 hours to literally the middle of nowhere, stay in a motel all week, plant trees every day, and then come back to the hostel of a weekend. I'll have to do another story time on the whole of Australia. Let's focus on the murderer for this one, but I'll do another one on the hostel, the farm work, moving to Australia. So just make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to hear about that one. That's some adventures. But we'll focus on on living with the murderer in this one. So we basically go to the motel all week, go back to the hostel of a weekend. And then on the weekend, when we went back to the hostel, there was an older man who lived in the hostel, which was a bit weird considering it was all backpackers and he was Australian. He was an older man and he lived in the hostel, and it was because some of the lads were doing solar panels. So he was like the one who'd teach them to do the solar panels and things like that. So he was nice enough, seeing him in the kitchen. In the hostel as well, you've got a big shared kitchen, so if you're making food, everyone's in there making food. So I'd seen him sometimes in the kitchen. It'd be nice, he'd have a little laugh at you, say what are you making. Seemed nice enough. And then one day, on the weekend, we were having a drink in the hostel. And he was like, oh, my friend's coming down for a drink tonight. So his friends came down. They kept themselves to themselves, just had a drink on their own. And then his friend left after, I'd say about 2 hours. And then the next weekend, he said, oh, my friend's coming back again. He's going to stay and start working on the solar panels with me. This man came to stay. It was a Saturday night. We were all having a drink. This man was drinking, but they were mixing more. Like, they were getting more involved with us. So we were playing like Flip Cup and things like that. We used to play games over the weekend there. So we were playing, I remember everyone was playing Flip Cup. And he came over to me and he was like, oh, can I play with you? So I was like, yeah, of course. Obviously, I'd never leave anyone else. Like, I thought, so yeah, if he wants to play with us, let him play. Then the other people in the hostel were being a bit funny, like, oh, there's not even numbers, he can't join in and stuff. And I feel bad on people like that too. I felt a bit bad on him when he wanted to play the game. I thought, right, like, just let him. Obviously, everyone's got a better intuition than me. So at the end of the night, he was sitting next to me. He was like, oh, you're the only one who's tried to let me join in. Thank you so much. He was like saying he's an Aboriginal. That's like, you know, the indigenous people from Australia. He was saying if he painted a picture of me, he could put it in an Aboriginal museum and we could make millions of pounds. He was asking me if I had a boyfriend, asking me how old I was. Bearing in mind I was 22 at the time. He was like in his late 40s, I'd say. He's just asking me like a lot of personal questions, and like I was just talking to him because I didn't want to, I don't know, I felt a bit bad on him, so I was answering him. Not the type of person who'd be horrible and ignore everyone. And then as the night went on, I thought, oh, like, I'm just going to go to bed. Like, you're talking to me too much. So I just took myself off to bed. And then on the Monday morning, we got picked up to go back to the motels again to do the farm work. And we put the radio on. We were in like a minibus, all the girls going to work. And on the radio, it was like serial killer on the loose in Mildura. And everyone was having a joke like, oh, Leah, that's your one from the other night. You were flirting with a serial killer. Like, we were all just laughing in the van on the way to work. And then we got to the farm. We planted trees all day. And then we got back to the motel. This was on Monday night. And 3 of the girls were in the room across that road. 3 of us were in that room. I don't know why. I never watched the news. We all got back from work. We all must have put the news on at the same time in both the rooms across, like the hall from each other. Came on the news. The serial killer in Mildura is Steve, and it was the man who was staying in the hostel with us. So that's who it was. There was a picture of him. We were all in shock. We all started screaming. We all ran into the hall, bumped into each other. We were like, have you seen the news? Have you seen the news? Like, the man who used to take us to do the farm work came running out the room. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, he wanted to know. And we were like telling him, he's like, that's so bad. I don't want you going back to the hostel. I can't believe this has happened. Like, he's been there with years. And like, we were having a joke that morning, like, imagine that was him. And when we put it on, it was actually him. So we were all shocked, obviously. We went back to the hostel on the Friday after work, and they called a meeting with everybody. And in the meeting, they said, you know, if he comes within the hostel, if he's anywhere near it, phone us, phone the police straight away. And it was just really scary, you know, to be there, to having lived with that murderer, to having spoke to him. And you know, when I spoke to him, like, he was like very scruffy looking. I wouldn't say he was a murderer. Obviously, I'm not the best judge of character. But you know, when you're just shocked that someone could have murdered these innocent people. And I think I've put the link up to the newspaper article, who he is and everything like that, and the story. I think what had happened is one of the people was his auntie. I think 2 lived quite close to him, and I think they were older people that he had murdered. I think it was to rob the money and the possessions after he had done it, which was really sad. And he actually, at the time when it first came out, when we were in Mildura, when we were staying there, he got away with it. The police said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest him, which I was shocked about, because I thought if one's his auntie, 2 of his next door neighbours, it was obviously him. If he's on the run, it was obviously him. Do you know what I mean? But he wasn't arrested at the time, and it wasn't until, I'd say a good year, 2 years later, I was actually home from Australia, and all the girls from the farm that we lived with was sharing the newspaper article that he had actually now been arrested. They'd found more evidence, but he had just been let go for that whole 2 years, and I just don't think it's right, to be honest. Also, on the news, when he was on the news, on the Monday, it came up that it was him, picture of him. And then on the Tuesday, when we got home from work, put the news back on, it was a murderer. Steve is looking for love. He's on these... I could have been the one. He must have been looking for love with me. But they were putting it on the news. Like, I just don't think they do that. Like in England, would they? Like, murderer looking for love. Putting his dating apps on, trying to help him find someone. Like, I just don't think he was on the news like that. Yeah, it's me. I'm looking for love. He didn't say it was me who killed people, but he was like, hi, I'm Steve, looking for love. Like, he was actually on the news speaking to them, saying that. Like, I just think it's crazy, the stuff they do. But yeah, he was on the news looking for love. And then he was on the loose, basically. They let him go for 2 years. So it was really scary to know we were staying in that hostel and he could turn up at any time. We were working away in the middle of the week. We were in the middle of nowhere. We had no phone signal. If someone wanted to murder us, I don't think anybody would know. And we were 22-year-old girls at the time. Now I look back, I think it's a dangerous situation that we were put in. So I would say if anyone's going to Australia, do more research on the farm that you're going to stay in. Me and my best friend Chloe, we actually ended up getting kicked out of that farm the week later. I'll do another story time on that. We were kicked out 2 o'clock in the morning, 22-year-old girls out of a farm in the middle of nowhere, threw out onto the streets. So if you want to hear the story time about that, comment below, let me know, and I'll do the story time on that as well. But we ended up moving away from Mildura. We ended up going to another farm with our friends that was much more safe. But just please do your research, stay as safe as you can. Always make sure you've got signal on your phones. I'm just so shocked when I look back now at the time I was there and how naive we was and how anything really could have happened to us. And I'm just so lucky, so fortunate. You know, that situation could have ended up so much worse. And I'm just really happy, obviously, it ended the way it did. He's arrested now. But yeah, I just wanted to come on and share my story of living with a murderer with you all. Comment below, let me know your thoughts. I'll tag the newspaper article so you can see them. I'll insert a picture of them if I can. Thank you for listening to me, and I've got a lot more story times to come.